Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Second to None podcast. I am Blayne Gilmer, joined by my co-host, none other than Tavarres King. Tavarres, it was a jam-packed weekend, and we are here on a reaction Monday. Is there anything better than being able to react to SEC football action?
Yeah, the only thing that's better than that is being able to say dogs on top. We can say that after week one, baby. That's what I'm talking about.
TK, for those that are listening via the podcast format, is heavily decked out in his red and black right now. Got the Georgia Bulldog, the not the G, the traditional Georgia logo.
Yeah, old school.
Which is something you got Arthur Lynch was talking about on Twitter the other day. Did you see Arthur the other day?
Yeah, I did. Artie says a lot of crazy stuff on Twitter. I'm gonna have to talk to Artie about that.
Man, Artie's blowing people up, saying that everybody else's logos are trash and Georgia's that's the best logo ever. Like, he's just speaking his mind out there. But
I love it. No, I love it.
No, Artie's great. And speaking of tight end play, that's something that we're going to talk about with Georgia. Georgia's freshman Brock Bowers stepped up in that big win over Clemson. And then, of course, you've got Alabama makes a statement once again. Texas A&M looks sharp with a new, breath of life into their offense with Haynes King coming in. And then Kentucky is explosive as well. Those were the good. We'll get to some of the not so good. We have a petition that we're going to start to kick a team out of the league, TK. On this show, we're going to do all that kind of stuff. But we've also covered things like the spreads from the week before, which now we're going to move to our Wednesday shows because Mondays are reaction. So we'll get to the lines and spreads on our Wednesday shows. But here on this reaction Monday, we can say that we told everybody that we thought Central Michigan would outright upset Missouri. Didn't quite happen on that, but they did cover that 13.5-point spread. And TK, I wanted to go ahead and tell everybody, with those spreads and odds and things like that, Bet Online is the place that you have to go to do it. And we want to go ahead and shout out our sponsor of the show, Bet Online. It's that time of year again, and all eyes are now turning to football as teams are back on the gridiron to start the football season. As always, Bet Online is your number one spot for all the pro and college football action this season. Get the latest updated odds and props and contests. Online's biggest $500,000 NFL mega contest, the world's largest 200,000 NFL survivor contest is now open at BetOnline. So head on over to the website or use your mobile device to sign up for BetOnline today and receive a 100% welcome bonus. Take advantage of their opening day super promo and make a bet on this Thursday, September 9th, the opener between the Super Bowl champs, the Buccaneers, and the Cowboys. And if you lose, your wager will be refunded up to $25 using the promo code NFL100. Bet Online, the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. Bet Online, your online sportsbook experts. TK, before we get into the college stuff, man, the NFL season's getting going here. Just tell people in terms of the intensity when the season gets started, what's the difference like? I mean, you've played in the NFL, you've played in college. Kirby said in game day the other day that every college game just seems to mean more, but in terms of the NFL, I mean, what's the attitude as you get started in the season compared to that attitude getting started in college?
Man, I kind of approached it the same, bro. It's a business mindset. You're locked in. You're ready to roll. You're focused on everything that the goals that you set for yourself as well as your teammates. And you're trying to reach those things, man. So you're just ready and eager to go, bro. You've prepared like all week, not all week. Shoot, longer than all week, 6 weeks probably. And if you're Georgia, a team like Georgia, you've had your longest training camp. So You're ready, bro. You're ready to get out there and showcase your abilities and get the season underway.
As well. So speaking of Bet Online, you're going to throw down some NFL action on the Buccaneers and Cowboys. I mean, that ought to be easy money for the Buccaneers, I would think, right there. Those Cowboys have been trash, man.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to take one Thomas Brady.
That's it. I think he's done all right in his career. He's done some good stuff.
Yeah, he's all right. Yeah, I'm gonna have to take my man Mike Evans and the Bucks.
There we go. There we go. Well, speaking of some big-time performers, just like Tom Brady and Mike Evans, there were some big-time performances in the SEC, and none bigger. We'll go ahead and touch it right off the bat. In my opinion, there was no bigger performance thrown out there than what the Georgia Bulldogs did to the number 3 ranked Clemson Tigers. As your tweet said, not number 3 no more. Because Georgia is now going to surpass them and probably, in my opinion, move up to number 2 in the country behind Alabama, and we'll touch on them shortly. But TK, just tell everybody, I mean, you've seen this Georgia Bulldog program. Of course, you've been in it, and then you've been very up close and personal, know guys that have played there recently and things of that nature. How dominant was that performance in terms of defensively?
It was one of the most impressive performances I've seen on defense in a long, long time, bro. It was very impressive from the jump. Those guys were locked in and loaded and trying to get to number 5, bro. And now they weren't just trying; they were hitting home. 7 sacks is huge, bro. We were doing things that that kind of put them in situation on offensive lines where they, were miscommunicating and things like that, bringing guys off the edge from the secondary, which is why he threw that pick 6. So, I mean, we were dialed in. It was fun to see. Georgia's defense is really special.
Yeah, I want to talk about from a receiver's standpoint with Justin Ross, that route he was running on the pick 6 by Chris Smith. It looked to me like a deeper slant. It wasn't like your traditional 3-step slant. It was almost like a between a slant and a post, bringing it in there. But from a receiver's point of view, kind of walk us through when you see a guy like Christopher Smith at safety that you think he's playing that outside leverage. And then Georgia does that trap coverage almost where they bait outside and then come inside. How difficult is that? Just kind of walk us through that from a receiver's standpoint.
Yeah. So normally from an offensive perspective, when you bring guys from the secondary, we have what we call side adjustments, which are quick hitters. And I think they had one on. My buddy just jumped it, man. He jumped it. It was just a great play. I know that we rolled back to 2 and brought to 2 deep and brought the nickel.
Yeah.
And Buddy just jumped it. He picked it. It was just a perfect play. But from an offensive perspective, man, Justin Ross probably should have flattened that thing out a little more, and it would have worked out for him. But I'm glad it worked out for the good guys.
Yeah, no, I mean, I just wanted to point that out to people because you talked about it in terms of offense, and this transitions to Georgia's offense as well, because, not only did they have so many guys out, but you and Aaron Murray talked about it. And if you didn't hear the conversation between TK, Aaron Murray, and myself, go back in the archives on 365 Sports and on the podcast and check that out. We talked about how offenses, they take a little while. There's more nuances in offense. There's more timing. There's more adjustments, things like that. Justin Ross has not been full go and healthy. So his timing with DJ Uiagalelei was not, 100% there. And then also Georgia, the same thing with JT and their receivers. So I guess
100%.
Everybody knows how impressive the defensive front was. I think that the secondary performed outstanding. They were the ones that had the questions, and you talked about plastering to receivers. They did that.
Yes, sir.
They did that. But everybody knows Georgia's defense is elite. Just talk about, what does Georgia have to work on from a guy who's played at Georgia at the college level? What does Georgia have to work on? Obviously, they're going to get healthier, but what do they have to work on in terms of becoming more explosive and things like that?
Man, you said it. I think we get a lot back out of the training room in the health department. That'll be huge. But honestly, I think that Coach Monken is using the weapons that he has, and it was good to see. I think that one thing that we can do and that we'll be able to do more of, because we have a stable in the backfield, is a lot of play action stuff, and our tight ends are going to get a lot of usage. Look for Big O to get a lot of usage. It's gonna be
Brock Bowers was
yeah.
unbelievable.
My man Brock. Yeah, Brock. Look for him to get involved more. He stepped up huge yesterday. Just look for guys to get involved, especially off the play action. I feel like that's going to be huge for us this year. We're pounding out.
Yeah, and there's like a million different variations off that naked boot, the waggle, all that kind of stuff that pro teams and college teams do. So Georgia definitely is going to utilize a lot of that, it seems like. And with that comes some outside zone type stuff and things like that. So Georgia is definitely going to progress offensively, and they definitely seem to be the class of the East. And now we turn our attention, TK, to the class of the West, and really the class of college football, it seems right now, is Alabama.
Man.
I mean, Bryce Young, both of us kind of questioned, okay, is he just going to be able to come in and kind of continue that with only having 3 returning starters for Alabama? But just, TK, have you ever seen, from a player's point of view, both in the college and NFL, Alabama, it doesn't seem to matter who's in there, who's the trigger man, who's calling their plays, because they've got a new offensive coordinator. I've never seen a team that it just consistently has receivers running wide open.
Yeah, I mean, it's I haven't seen anything like it, and let me first apologize to Alabama for even questioning if y'all were still Alabama. Man, my bad, because y'all said y'all still Bama, baby. Because look here, man, like you said, when you've got a team that you can just plug and play players, that says a lot about the coaching that's being done, man. You said it. I mean, they've got guys running butt naked, wide open.
Yeah.
Often. So I mean, it's impressive to see. And Bryce Young looked really good, bro. He looked poised. He looked prepared. Tough. So yeah, I mean, Bama is Bama.
Yeah, and they get a transfer in, Jameson Williams from Ohio State, right, at receiver. What does he do in his first game? He goes 4 catches for 126 yards, a touchdown with a long of 94. John Mechie, 6 catches, 76 yards, a touchdown. And, of course,
they're just explosive, man.
Then they've got Cameron Latou, a tight end that's over there looking like, the next coming of Tony Gonzalez or something out there with his 2 touchdowns to burst on the scene when everybody was expecting kind of Billingsley to be that guy, and here comes Latou out of nowhere. So and Bryce Young obviously picking up right where he left off. He had a better debut than picking up right where Alabama left off, and even more so better because he had a better debut than Mac Jones, better debut than Jalen Hurts, and a better debut than Tua Tagovailoa. So, I mean, Bryce Young, I still 100% question, though, with Bryce Young, is he going to be big enough and stout enough when it comes to some of these SEC defenses are going to heat him up, and how's he going to hold up over time? That's kind of my question with Bryce Young. But if you give him time at all, if he's able to have some rhythm to throw the football, watch out, because the dude has a freaking howitzer attached to his right side of his body, and it's unbelievable. I mean, the dude's 5'8". I mean, we talked about, can he, on another show, I was like, can he even ride all the rides at Disney World, but he's out there slinging that thing, 75 yards if he wants to. I mean, he's got a cannon. So
he unleashes it.
Alabama. Now, I do question how good Miami is after looking at that, because the defense that Miami played, you've seen Georgia and you've seen Clemson and you've seen Ohio State, people like that at least play what looks to be respectable, sound defense versus Alabama. They may get beat in a 50-50 ball or a situation where Alabama's just superhuman athletes come down and make the plays, but they're at least there in position. Miami was nowhere to be found on a lot of those plays. It was just Katie barred the door. They were just going. But would you? Oh, go ahead.
No, you got it. My fault.
I was just gonna say, would you agree right now? I mean, it looks like if everything goes to plan, it's going to be another matchup in Atlanta. The unstoppable force versus the immovable object. Alabama's offense versus Georgia's defense.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I would have to say right now. Obviously, it's Reaction Monday, not Overreaction Monday, but That's what it's looking like. That's what it's looking like right now, man. We played well. They played like themselves. But shoot, it's a long season. Long season.
It is a long season. And during that season, guys, if you want to have some fun with all these picks and things going on, you need to make sure to head over to playactionpools.com. We're so excited that our pod is partnering with playactionpools.com this season to bring some interactive fun to the sport we love the most. You'll be able to get in on the action with the playactionpools.com football pick'em challenge, which is open to everyone, guys. So here's how it works. Sign up for our contest, the Bleav football pick'em at playactionpools.com, and then get your picks in each week. We're going to select 10 of the highest profile games of the week between NFL and college football. Whoever gets the most picks correct is going to win cool prizes like electric sunglasses, a pair of DC shoes. Again, go and sign up at playactionpools.com using Bleav, that's BLEAV, football pick'em. And if you plan on hosting your own football contest, make sure to use playactionpools.com today. They've got Survivor, pick'em, well as sportsbook style concepts called Build Your Own Bankroll. Play Action Pools, your home for all your office sports pools. So excited to have Play Action Pools with us. But TK, I wanted to say, we talked about it's Reaction Monday. We talked about it looks like to be a foregone conclusion with Alabama and Georgia meeting in that SEC championship. But two programs I think that the only other two programs that I was impressed with in week one, honestly, and I think you're going to have the most to say about it, Texas A&M and Kentucky. Texas A&M on the West, of course, with an October 9th showdown looming with Alabama and College Station. And then Kentucky, I think, with a October 16th matchup against the Georgia Bulldogs coming up. And that's after Georgia plays an Auburn team that we'll talk about that played better than we thought. So the gauntlet of the SEC is still there. Each week, Georgia and Alabama are going to have challenges. But just kind of talk about what did you see out of A&M, Kentucky, maybe Kentucky's offense, man. Kentucky actually knows how to throw a forward pass. What do you know about that? I mean, it's crazy.
Bro, Will Levis, 18 for 26, 367 yards, 4 tuggies.
That's more than they threw for all last year, isn't it?
Yeah. Will Levis was out there throwing the ball around, man. Kentucky looked like a different Kentucky. Again, it's week one, so I'm excited. I was kind of intrigued at what they were going to throw out there too, as well. So it was cool to see them spin a ball around like that. It's something that they hadn't been able to do in a while. So, hats off to those cats for being able to come out of there with a big dub against Louisiana Monroe.
Yeah, and, this is a program, TK, under Mark Stoops that this past year they put 6 guys in the league. 6 Kentucky Wildcats were drafted. Like I said, you've played you got drafted, you've played in the league. Talk about how good of a program do you have to have for 6 players to get drafted in 1 year out of that program?
Well, I mean, that's big, man. It's huge. It says a lot about the culture. It says a lot about the type of guys that you have, not only on the coaching staff, but on that team. If you can get 6 guys drafted, that's tough, man. Being drafted in itself is tough. But if you get 6 from one school, that means you got some players in the building. So that alone speaks for itself and says that, I feel like they're kind of on the rise a little bit in the sense of recruiting, as well as, like I said, turning players into NFL players. So
yeah, the under Mark Stoops, the recruiting's there, the development's there, the defense has been there. Kentucky and Georgia, remember the game with DeAndre Swift in the rain where it was just a slugfest between Georgia and Kentucky. That defense has been there. They had literally no quarterback for the last 2 years. I mean, it's just been crazy. Now Will Levis comes in. TK, I think I saw a stat where Kentucky had 10 passes over 30 yards all of last season. They had I think 6 yesterday. So over 30 yards. So when you're being able to be more explosive like that, honestly, that's what Georgia's trying to do. They're trying to be more explosive. So Kentucky looks to be kind of in that same vein as Georgia, a team that's always played good defense, always recruited well for where they are. Now, Kentucky's not recruiting nearly on the level of Georgia, but they kind of a program they're almost modeling themselves after, it seems. So that's going to be a big showdown in the SEC East when that comes up for sure. Now turning our attention to the SEC West, Texas A&M, Haynes King at quarterback now taking over in that Jimbo Fisher offense, and they handle business versus Kent State 41-10. There was some inconsistency, some things like that, but TK, before we pick them apart too hard, you talked about as a player, when you guys did it against Buffalo, I think in your career, when you're a heavily favored team, you're not going to be maybe the sharpest right off the bat. And to be fair, those guys are excited about their opener too. But overall, I thought Texas A&M was pretty impressive.
Yeah, they were pretty impressive. And to your point, you're not going to be, and that's for every team that played week 1 football.
It's Alabama.
Hell yeah. You're not going to be rolling, man. You're not going to be rolling like that. You're going to have penalties. You're going to have miscues. Guys are going to miss assignments. But you got to overcome those things and obviously get back to who you are. And they were able to do that and make some plays. I think that offense is going to be explosive. I think that the Q is very explosive, both running and throwing the ball. I think that they have an opportunity too. They might, as they get better, we talked about them, getting over that hump of beating Bama. They might, just kidding.
Yeah,
they ain't ready.
Well, I will say this. One common thread that has been with the teams in the past that have beaten Alabama, right? When Johnny Manziel beat Alabama, when, Dak Prescott at Mississippi State took down Alabama, and then also Bo Wallace at Ole Miss twice, I think, with Hugh Freeze. All are mobile quarterbacks, right? All are able to extend. Haynes King has true 4.5 speed. They were running triple option type stuff in the backfield, 2 backs, one going in front, one being a pitch man. He's able to extend plays, and he's also keeping his eyes downfield, a lot like we talked about with Joe Milton in Tennessee, and we'll get to their performance in a minute. But Haynes King, he's a mobile guy. He's a guy who has a strong arm. He was very accurate in the intermediate game. Where Texas A&M struggled was the deep ball, right? He was overthrowing a lot of deep balls, missed on things like that. But that comes with timing, and that comes with things like that. But I just think that what I'm really impressed with is when you have the ability to line up Aniyah Smith and Isaiah Spiller in different spots, go 2 backs, and then throw Jalen Weidemeyer in there, and they're able to go so many different formations and sets, and Haynes King is able to extend plays with his legs. That offense seems like one to me that's set up to have success against Alabama, which, let's be honest, Alabama defensively, they're supposed to be a lot better this year, but in the past few years has struggled a little bit defensively. So maybe that's something Texas A&M can take advantage of when that October 9th matchup comes around.
Yeah, it's definitely something to keep our eyes on. And to your point, those deep balls are hard to connect on early on, bro. Again, like Murray and I missed on several early on. So I think that'll come. And they were prodding him all spring, all fall on his deep ball accuracy. So I think it's there. I think it'll come.
Maybe a little geeked up in front of the 12th
man.
Maybe
he was just a little juice. Had an extra 5 or 10 yards on that thing.
That's it. He's letting that fly. I was like my first time in college. I was playing, getting ready for 7-on-7. We're going through, and I had a guy he was a 6th-year guy. He'd been there forever, and we were going through like routes on air drills, and 5 of us, 5 quarterbacks at a time, getting ready to throw for all 5 routes. We had one quarterback that held on to the football, right? And it's first where he held on to it in 7-on-7. He's like, "Oh, something happened." And he was like, "What are you talking about? Something happened." He goes, "Fire the freaking pigskin. It's right on air." So, you never know. Crazy things happen when you've got the adrenaline flowing. And that was in practice. So who knows what Haynes King was feeling in his first start there at College Station.
He was trying to let it rip, man.
That's it. Now, so we've talked about the impressive teams, Georgia, Alabama, Texas A&M, and of course, Kentucky. Now, I most of the teams kind of did their thing. We'll run through the scores really quickly here in terms of the teams that were kind of status quo. Arkansas, nothing crazy, 38-17. They took care of business. Tennessee, 38-6 over Bowling Green. They didn't cover the 34.5, which we told you they wouldn't cover the 34.5. Tennessee's Joe Milton still wasn't as impressive as we thought he would be. Only 140 passing yards, very inaccurate at times. That Tennessee offense bogged down still. So, we'll see. We'll see what ends up happening. Jury's still out in Tennessee, but still a 38-6, nothing to sneeze at on their victory. Then we talked about Missouri. They were able to win by 10. They didn't cover the 13.5, which we told you they wouldn't cover the 13.5 on that. So South Carolina beats Eastern Illinois 46-0. Old Zeb Nolan tossing four tutties over there for so the GA turned QB1 has a nice performance. But then one I did want to talk about, Florida 35-14 over FAU, and they gave up 14 points in the fourth quarter. So it was 21-0 in the third quarter, Florida over FAU. Not exactly the point spread you would think with the Florida program who was in the SEC championship last year. Everyone's heralded Emory Jones, but TK, Emory Jones ends up getting pulled in the first, and I think he was 17-27, 113 yards, 2 interceptions. What does that? You've probably been a part of teams where there's quarterback controversies and maybe happens early in the season. What does that do to the psyche of the team where, okay, all offseason it's been, here's our guy, and in the first game he gets pulled and then backup comes in? I mean, does that change things, dynamics for skill guys and everything around?
Bro, sometimes it's funny in that aspect. Sometimes you got guys that roll with the twos, roll with the ones, and they like that two quarterback. So guys might like Anthony Richardson. You know what I'm saying? So when you go Emory Jones, one tug, two picks, when you're throwing picks and having a rough outing, bro. Again, I think I've said it before on one of our shows. The coaching staff is going to put in who they think is going to get the job done. And as a player, you as a receiver, you got to only respect that. And then, especially when he's getting you the ball, making plays. Now Anthony Richardson is more of a runner. 160 yards on 160 yards on the ground. But as a receiver, I'm kind of like, dang, bro, throw the ball. But
yeah, no doubt.
but hey, I'm trying to win at the end of the day. So.
And that man streaking down the sideline at 6'4", 236. We talked about this with Joe Milton, where Joe Milton was able to run, but Anthony Richardson's out there just running, blowing by folks at that size. He may end up, taking this job from Emory Jones if he can provide that. If the passing game isn't going to be there to the level of what Kyle Trask was able to do, which it's apparent that it's not, because Kyle Trask was phenomenally accurate the last 2 years for Florida. That doesn't seem to be where the game is headed. Dan Mullen has a lot of experience with running quarterbacks in the past. Think of Tim Tebow, think of Alex Smith, all the way back to his Utah days with Dan Mullen. So Anthony Richardson may fit this mold better for Florida, but I would you agree that not a very impressive showing overall for the Florida Gators?
Yeah, not a good look for them. Like you said, that's what I expected that spread to look a little bit bigger.
Yeah. Speaking of a spread, we said all last week, we got to admit we were wrong on one, TK. We said all last week.
That's 30.
Me too, man. We said 37 points was asinine to give an Auburn offense that hadn't really done anything. But here comes Bo Nix throwing for 275. Tank Bigsby with 119, and they hang a 60 piece up on Akron, man. So, and I know Akron is literally one of the worst football programs that God's green earth has ever seen right now. But Auburn still, when you hang 60 points, you just got to tip your hat and say, hey, we were wrong on that one.
Yeah, that's all I can do. I mean, obviously, Coach Bobo had those guys ready to roll, and like I said, week one is normally not. You ain't gonna hang 60 on somebody in week one. But dang, they did it. So hats off to those cats. I was wrong. Was that the only one I was wrong on?
Yeah, other than we said Central Michigan was going to win outright versus Missouri, but they didn't. But they did cover
the betting. They won for my bet onliners. They won.
Yeah, they won. Now, two teams that to kind of wrap us up before we talk about the Ole Miss and Louisville game that will be taking place tonight. We got to talk about this LSU squad, man. LSU loses on the road to UCLA, taking nothing away from Chip Kelly and his bunch because, man, they had running backs and quarterbacks. Thomas Robinson looked great at quarterback. They had Charbonnet, who was running like a grown man out there, breaking tackles and things like that. But LSU, TK, when you talk about Ed Orgeron, he caught lightning in a bottle with Joe Burrow. Had Jamar Chase there at receiver, just a bevy of weapons there. Randy Moss's son playing tight end. I mean, he had a lot of weapons there. Clyde Edwards-Helaire at running back, who's now with the Chiefs. But since those guys have moved on, and subsequently Joe Brady moves on, he's the offensive coordinator with the Panthers. Dave Aranda is now was his DC that year and moves on to Baylor as the head coach. They went through Bo Pelini last year. It was horrendous on defense. Now it's no better this year, it appears. So I just want to get your perspective on this, because you are used to, when you played in the SEC and just throughout the history, we're used to LSU being a tough defense. I mean, LSU
100%.
And
100%.
What do you think when you see how they played against UCLA this weekend?
Man, watching those clips, watching that game, and then going back and watching those clips, I was like, that is not LSU. From an offensive perspective and defensive perspective, they haven't looked the same since Joe Brady left. But from a defensive perspective, bro, they were getting ran on like it was nobody's business, as well as missing tackles, busted coverages. So it was a little bit weird to see. Like you said, we're used to a hard-nosed, aggressive defensive ends that are nasty LSU team, and not seeing that is kind of odd. So I think if they're gonna be the seat's kind of hot for Coach O right now. In a sense, I mean, if you think about the offense not being able to do anything, shoot, dude, I think it's going to be a tough year for those cats.
Yeah, and everybody was kind of giving them the benefit of the doubt, saying, well, COVID may have messed with the defense last year and some of all that kind of stuff, so kind of throw that out. But then the first game, right off the bat, it looks no bad. I mean, I'm just talking about simple stuff like play action, tight end, drag routes, safeties not picking it up. What really bothers me is the tackling. When you're on offense, right? When you're an offensive player and you see your defense struggling to tackle, just can't stop people, does that make you put more pressure on yourself? While Max Johnson in the offense, do you think they shouldered more burden and said, hey, our defense is just sucking up a storm right now. We gotta go score every time. Does that put a bigger burden on you?
I feel like unconsciously it does. But every time you go out on offense, you're trying to put points on the board. Whether it's three or seven, you're trying to come off the field with points on the board and end it with a kick, a PAT or a field goal. So no, I don't feel like pressure should be added, but unconsciously you're thinking like, damn, we've got to go out here and make plays. When your defense is struggling and they're giving up points and they're giving up yards after yard, and you're in crappy field position, that's definitely in your mind. You're thinking, got to make a play, got to make a big play. And sometimes things are forced. You try to throw that thing with your left hand behind your back.
Yeah, you're trying to make Jared Lorenzen plays out there.
Sometimes you try to do one of those, but no, man, it's to answer that in short, you definitely try to do a little more from everybody's perspective.
Well, in the scheme of things, you do it, like we said, it's not overreaction Monday. LSU, it's one game, it's a non-conference game. So, technically, just like if Georgia would have lost to Clemson, everything's still out there in front of them, but they've got to get the defense shored up there. They have a couple cupcake games coming up. You would think McNeese State and Central Michigan coming to LSU over the next couple of weeks, and then they go on the road to Starkville, Mississippi State, which we're not even going to waste.
Michigan is not a cupcake, though.
Well, it's not a cupcake, but
they get their coach back, bro.
Yeah, Jim McElwain, that's true. So who knows? They may end up losing. If they lose to Central Michigan, Ed O is that's it, man. It's gonna be done. But
bro, after the Natty a couple years, no, he ain't going. They ain't gonna do him like that.
I don't know. I mean,
it's hot. It's hot. The seat's hot. It's hot. It'll be hot.
It's what have you done for me lately here, TK, with college football today, it seems like. And I don't know when you're that bad. But speaking of bad, we're not even going to have to touch on it because of for time purposes here. But Mississippi State beats Louisiana Tech by 1 point. That's all you need to know on that. But that's just blasé. We don't have to throw that out there. I mean, you got Leach still trying to figure stuff out over there, it seems like, in terms of defensively himself. But the last thing before we talk about Ole Miss and Louisville tonight, I wanted to touch on Vanderbilt and our discussion and argument to kick them out of the league after losing 23-3 to East Tennessee State and only rushing for 85 yards and allowing East Tennessee State 179 yards rushing.
They got to go.
If you're an SEC program and you lose to East Tennessee State by 20 points at home, what's going on? I mean, I don't even understand.
They got to go, bro.
Yeah,
they got to go.
Vanderbilt has never been just a beacon of success, right? But even when you were at Georgia, and then of course the James Franklin years and things like that, Vanderbilt had some pride about them. They played with some pride.
Yeah. Honestly, James Franklin really, I feel like, changed that program, bro. Like when he was there, he had a fire about him. I mean, and he still does. He had a fire about him, and those players had a fire about him. Casey Hayward. They had ballers there as well. Like Casey Hayward was a baller. Jordan Rogers. Those were cats that played with intensity, bro.
Cunningham a couple years ago.
Yeah, bro. They had some pieces. So I don't know what the deal is now, but we might want to swap them out with Texas or Oklahoma.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think they need to go play in the Sun Belt or something. I mean, I don't know what's going on with Vanderbilt, but Clark Lee definitely has his work cut out for him. Ken Seals, their starting quarterback, threw 2 picks on the night. I mean, it's terrible. But TK, now to wrap things up here, the last thing, everybody knows what Matt Corral brings to this Ole Miss offense. He's an electrifying player, but he's always had Lane Kiffin there with him. They're a 9.5-point favorite in Atlanta, Mercedes-Benz Stadium, host, with Louisville coming in. But just how big of a deal is that with Lane Kiffin going to be out after having tested positive for COVID?
That's a big blow, bro. With Coach Kiffin calling plays, and him being an amazing play caller, somebody that can call on the fly, make adjustments, mid-game adjustments. I think it's going to be a little bit different for Ole Miss from that aspect. That being said, whoever steps into that role, that's an audition.
Yeah, no doubt.
For real, man. That's an audition on a big stage. So it'll be a big moment for them as a team. But I think as a player, man, you have to roll out there with the game plan in mind. The game plan is going to be the game plan, and you know what that is, and you got to execute that to the best of your abilities. And I think they'll have a pretty solid game plan, and Lane will have those guys ready to roll, whether he's there or not.
Yeah, and the added benefit I think that Ole Miss has is with the ability of Matt Corral to use his legs. And then, of course, you got Jerrion Ely there in the backfield, who's one of the best running backs in the SEC. You can lean on the running game a little bit more. And what they do is a lot of RPO-based stuff anyways. Yeah. Coach Levy is their offensive line coach, who's kind of Lane's understudy, so he'll be calling the plays there. So maybe not that quarterback connection that Lane Kiffin has, with Matt Corral. But still expect Ole Miss to win this one. What do you think? Do you think even with Lane out, did they cover the 9.5?
Ooh, yeah, 9.5. I don't know. It might be closer than we think. It might be closer than that. I'm gonna say no.
Cunningham, the quarterback for Louisville. Ole Miss is terrible on defense, so I'm
gonna say that for that reason. I'm gonna say no because they might score. What's the
I don't know the over under on it. I'd have to look that up, but I would say whatever it is, take the over.
Yeah, 100%.
All right. Well, guys, that has been Reaction Monday. We've touched on all the SEC games, given our opinion on what happened. Tune in Wednesday for our Wednesday show. Now will be when we look ahead to the next week. We analyze all the spreads. We give our betting picks in terms of who's going to cover, who won't. And then on Friday, TK and I, we talk about, we get some more in-depth analysis. We may have a guest on each week. Who knows on the Friday show? You never know who's going to pop in. And then, of course, we give our picks in terms of our outright winners. So TK, week 2, got a big game coming up with Texas coming to Arkansas after Texas took it to Louisiana Lafayette, which is a good ball team, and Sark starting off there, right? So you got Sark versus Sam Pittman, 2 coaches that couldn't be any more different, and it's gonna be a fun matchup. But excited to get into this week 2. What do you think is gonna be the big deal going into week 2? Is Georgia going to have a hangover going from Clemson to UAB? Are they going to sleepwalk a little bit, or you think they're going to handle it?
No, we'll be at home in Sanford Stadium, bro. It'll be jacked. We got fans back in there. They'll be even more jacked. I think it'll be a fun evening to be a dog.
Absolutely. Well, this wraps up the Monday edition, Reaction Monday, here on the Second to None podcast. Make sure to follow us on, subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and here on the 365 YouTube channel. This is part of the Bleav Podcast Network and presented by Bet Online and PlayActionPools.com. And we'll catch you next time on Second to None.